over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great stuff for you over there to check out. Again, the NHL back on Thursday. Parker Michaels back with his daily NHL picks. I put together a preview for UFC 232. We'll be looking at NFL Daily Fantasy tomorrow. We'll get lots of NFL content from Admir and Allen and all of our writers that do a fantastic job over there at BangTheBook.com. And, of course, we'll have some surprises for you here at the end of 2018. And hopefully it's been a good year for you. Hopefully it's been a good year from a handicapping standpoint and a betting standpoint. Hopefully you're going into 2019 with more money than you had in 2018 in that bankroll. So hopefully we've done our job here on Bang the Book Radio and also at BangTheBook.com. Don't forget, I'm doing videos every day except for Saturday now over on our Bang the Book YouTube page. You can check those out, get my thoughts. Monday, our Monday mashup video. Tuesday, the Tuesday 3-pack. Wednesday, the Wednesday weekend look ahead. The Thursday 3-pack. And then on Friday, our football frenzy where I give you a pick on every game for that weekend. And, obviously I'll have to change the name of that here sometime in the near future. But in any event, we got good video content over on our YouTube page as well. Well, we got 2 segments left for this shorter holiday week on Bang the Book Radio. The first, our Westgate SuperContest selection segment. Joe Everett from Draft Scouts and Insider Football helping me out with that again here today. 37, 37, and 6 on the season for my Bang the Book podcast entry. Obviously not where I wanted to be. However, over the first 8 weeks, I was 10, 25, and 5. So very bad start, 27, 12, and 1 over the last 8 weeks here. So hopefully can end on a high note in week 17. Without further ado, here is this week's Westgate SuperContest selection segment with myself and Joe Everett. All right, I'm joined now by Joe Everett for our Week 17 Westgate SuperContest selection segment. Joe, of course, from Draft Scouts and Insider Football. Joe, how's it going today, man?
Not bad. Can't complain. Eating Christmas candy, drinking coffee, getting in on the bowl games. Hey, that's just what life's all about post-Christmas.
Yes, sir, most definitely is. And we're going to roll through Week 17 of the Super Contest here. As I mentioned just prior to this segment, 37, 37, and 6 with my Bang the Book podcast entry. Obviously not where I wanted to be. However, starting 10, 25, and 5 really digs a very big hole in the NFL and in any contest for that matter. But 27, 12, and 1 over the last 8 weeks to get up to 500. So hopefully I can have something to show for this run here after Week 17. Bang the Book entry, 43, 34, and 3. BangTheBook.com entry, 41, 36, and 3. That's our gold entry. The field, 51.75% last week, 51.57% for the season. The gold last week, 51.19%, 3.29% for the season. Top 5 consensus, 41 and 39 through 16 weeks. Top 5 in the gold, 44, 33, and 5. Consensus overall, 114, 119, and 7. Gold consensus, 129, 95, and 7. So the gold consensus side's very, very good this year. And, Joe, it's the end of the year. It's the end of the Super Contest, end of this segment. If you had some New Year's resolutions in the NFL, what did you learn this year? What are you going to try to do a little bit differently for next year?
I think planning towards the end of the season, and it's probably, listeners may even get tired of me saying it, but dead legs is a real thing, and these lineup changes and injury reports, I think being more on top of that and just planning for it. There's just no way a guy like Todd Gurley was going to make it with that whole volume and touches the last 2 seasons put together. It's like, man, this train was kind of bound to break down, and these Rams struggles. I'm not saying I should have seen this coming, but how important a back like that is to that offense of what they do and how much play action they run. Like that one was, I'm kind of kicking myself. And then I think some of these teams too, they're very dependent on speed, and like how maybe the Panthers were winning early, the Chiefs certainly. They were winning early with guys like Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, running all on the outsides. And then, Watkins is out, injured. Hill starts to get banged up. And then when they don't have that element of speed, there's a reason these Chiefs start dropping these games. It's not, the Ravens had this perfect plan. Well, yeah, so did the Broncos, and they almost caught them too. But it's a different version of the Chiefs. It's not just that suspension of Hunt and losing their running back and the running game changing, I think that it's just a whole roster across the board that, well, we're just not as fast and explosive as we used to be. So now they're having to win in different ways. I think, it's more that. I think that's definitely a whole lesson I'm learning is, it's 17 weeks rather. It's a long time, and there's a whole lot that can happen along the way. And I think definitely that teams change and how they have to go about winning. It has to change just by just simple fact of like we're not running the way we were in weeks 1 through 4.
No, I think it's a really excellent point to make there. You know, teams that are relying on speed, I mean, some of their speed guys just aren't quite there anymore. I mean, Tyreek Hill's playing through all kinds of stuff for Kansas City, but, you know, still, you haven't seen him be as explosive. Gurley's a fantastic example. What about in Minnesota? You know, Stephon Diggs, he's been banged up for several weeks. Their offense has been sputtering quite a bit. You know, when you look at the teams that are playing really well here, they're teams that have a lot of options. You know, the Chargers with really 3 backs now, including Justin Jackson, that they can use. And even with Gordon and Eckler hurt a little bit here of late, you know, Phillip Rivers still finding guys to get the football to. A couple of Williams on the outside. When Keenan Allen's not hurt, you know, he's been good. The Eagles making another little run here at the end. Lots of skill position guys for them. The Saints, you know, they've been consistently good all year long. They've got lots of guys they can go to. A lot of it is about depth. You know, even Dallas, for example, where would Dallas be without Amari Cooper right now? You know, they'd be running Ezekiel Elliott into the ground. Who would be catching passes for this team? Who would be helping Dak Prescott out? So I think that's a really important thing to look at. Depth at the skill positions and just overall the number of options that a team has. 16 weeks is hard to do if you're a speedster or a burner type of guy. I think that's a really good point you made. And also, too, you know, you look at the teams that are playing really well right now, Chicago, Baltimore. You know, late in the year, defense is even that much more important because these offenses are slowing down.
No, and even like teams like the Panthers, I think it hit them eventually too. As good as McCaffrey was, like I think he's the only one on their team that made the distance. DJ Moore, the rookie, hit a bit of a wall. Samuel started to slow down, and then I think that there's other one just on the theory and the topic there. I'd like to throw in. There's some teams that we've learned just don't change. From week to week, they don't care. They're going to run the same stupid game plan, and I'm looking at Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan. You know, they may be a playoff team. They may be winning this year. I think that's something we could take away and just, you know, kind of file away into 2019 when we get there, that especially out of conference and teams that they do not know. That game against the Colts is just stuck in my mind. Sure, it was a bad spot for them, but I just look at that game as Linehan and Garrett's refusal to go week to week and change what they do at their approach to their opponent. Because, you know, Bill Belichick doesn't go out there in the week and say, well, we're just going to run what we ran last week. It's just going to work because we're just going to pound our opponent into submission. Like, that's something I think the Cowboys, they're going to keep that staff, and they're going to keep doing stuff like that. And, you know, maybe it doesn't work within division against like a Washington or a New York, where the teams that they know them, and, you know, maybe they may actually have a detailed game plan. But for other squads, I'm convinced they just run the same old plan from last week. So that's something I take away, not to just fade Dallas out of division, but just watch them. When they're running hot, they're not some infallible team. They can get caught real easy, because I totally have very little respect for their coaching staff on offense.
One last thing I want to touch on here is, you know, we've seen, I mean, the Browns went 0-16 last year. We've seen some 2-14 types of teams. The Browns were 1-15 the year before that. Yeah, we've got some 4-11 teams, and the Cardinals are 3-12, and that thing's been a mess. And, you know, they may already be ready to pivot from Steve Wilkes after just one season. But I feel like, you know, we don't have any teams that are clearly shitty this year. And I'm just going to put it, you know, as bluntly as I possibly can. I don't think there are any teams that are just absolutely god-awful this year. I mean, yeah, you've got some growing pains with Josh Rosen, and, you know, you had Jimmy Garoppolo go down for the 49ers. And, you know, obviously the Raiders have a lot of work to do, but that's, you know, John Gruden, you know, being a dictator there, basically, and deciding what he wants with everything. But I feel like, even from a personnel standpoint, there's not a single team in this league right now that I look at and say they can't compete. I'm going to fade them blindly. They can't compete. I don't think we have that anymore.
Not as a whole team, and it's like the entire roster, because you could say the Raiders, but the problem there is I'd just say the Raiders defense. If you look at what they did on offense, the first drive basically of every game for the last 5-6 games, they scored 4 out of the first 5. Gruden may be a maniac and an idiot as far as personnel, but X's and O's and scripting and preparing game plans, I still have total confidence in him because they are prepared when they come out in that first half. So I think maybe a first half Raiders is something there, but it's sides. Yes, the Raiders defense, I would like to maybe fade that. The Jaguars offense, I'll say they're a joke, but still, that defense kept coming, and in specific games like that Colts game, for certain, that defense wanted to let it be known, you think Andrew Luck's back? We're still the Jaguars defense. Let's not get carried away. And I think it's some units are terrible, like that Cardinals offense at times, but then you flip it on the other side, their defense was no slouch. And, we're talking pre-show even, like the 49ers, I don't care, they're 4-11 right now. They're playing harder than any team. I wouldn't want to play the 49ers because, once again, that offense can score. They can prepare for different opponents, and they'll have a script that'll find their way into the red zone. I almost don't care who they're playing. That's just how much respect I have for their coach. But, it's just units, like the Lions defense. And they had that epidemic in the very beginning of the season where Patricia, his boys just could not tackle. I think they've kind of fixed that to a degree. But I would have to agree, you're not going to find a whole 53 that's just terrible, and you go out every week and fade them. I mean, the closest thing right now, and it's only due to injuries, I'd say, is the Bengals. I don't know if I'm going out of my way to go against them, but I don't want no part of Cincinnati right now.
One last thing I'll ask you about here. I don't know if it's 13 of the last 14 or 14 of the last 15 years, something like that. A team has gone from worst in its division to win it. This year we've got 2 of them, Houston, one of them, and the Chicago Bears, the other. So this is something that happens pretty much annually. But when I look at the 2018 standings here, Jets, Bengals, Jaguars, Raiders, Giants, Lions, Buccaneers, and Cardinals, on the surface right now, I don't see any of those teams doing that next year. Can you see a path for any of those 8 teams to do that?
No, because I believe Buffalo's got to turn it around. They've got the draft picks to do it. The Giants, they're kind of primed for a turnaround. The Buccaneers, though, I don't have any confidence in what they're doing. They're basically going to overhaul that entire bill. I think even maintenance staff's got to worry about losing their job. The whole thing's changing over there. So that's theoretically they could be worse. That's the one thing. Like Buccaneers, the Lions, I believe, turn around. 49ers turn around. But if 2 teams, I'd say Bucks, Cards, they've got a chance to still be pretty crappy, especially if the Cardinals go off and change coaching staffs again. Then you've got a defense that may be playing their third different defense for the last 3 years running. That's kind of a recipe, I think, for disaster there in Arizona. It just depends on who they hire. But I think there's a lot of teams on that back end. Like the Giants are primed for a flip-flop there. I think the Bengals, there's just too much talent on that team. The Jaguars, if you could just get an offensive guru in there and a quarterback worth of salt, that's a really good roster. I think everybody knows it. So I would agree that on that back end, there's a lot of teams that definitely won't be there next year.
All right, so let's take a look here at Week 17 in the Westgate SuperContest. And obviously, I don't need to tell our listeners this, but Week 17 is rough. You've got a lot of playoff scenarios. You've got a lot of situations where teams could be scoreboard watching and then tank in the second half. You've got situations where teams could be scoreboard watching and just turn it up and flip the switch in the second half. You've got must-win inflation priced into the number. You've got guys sitting out. You've got lame duck head coaches. It's a rough week, to say the least. in the NFL, and my thoughts with those that are on the cusp of the money or those that actually have a chance to win this thing, because it's very hard to navigate these rough seas here in Week 17. But we'll start with my first play here, and this is number 2 in the SuperContest rotation order, so right at the top of the board. I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys plus 6.5 against the New York Giants. I don't think the Giants are capable of laying 6.5 against anybody right now, and certainly even not a group of Cowboys backups. But GM, head coach, head MFer in charge, Jerry Jones, says that guys are going to play for the Cowboys this week. They need to get the offense going. They need to get some confidence rolling. So at the very least, those guys should play in the first half, should keep Dallas invested for a while. The Giants are playing out the string, and obviously here for the Giants too, so many Eli Manning questions and distractions. I think that overshadows everything this week. I think the Cowboys, while I don't expect them to win the game necessarily, I think getting 6.5 is a little bit too much for this game.
Yeah, that Giants team, I don't want to be on them at all at any point this year. It's just, I know there's a theory that Eli goes out strong, sort of swan song here, and maybe he'll be back next year. He can't be back next year. If he is back next year, it better be as a placeholder for somebody else. But regardless of that, still, I don't think there's no Odell here. Sterling Shepard and the crew, I've got a tough time because those linebackers are still going to be out there. Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, I'm confident they'll play. Regardless of who is out there on offense, I think this is a team they can't rest at all because they've got to play. I think it's a bad time for them to sort of rest starters and take a week off. So I'm with you there. I'd rather get some points on my side, get the better team. I'm reading that Zach Martin returned this week. I'm sure he wants to get back out there, kind of test out the knee. If he gets some minutes, I'd rather have the Cowboys on that side. So I don't blame you there at all.
And I think too, when you're a team that's been as inconsistent as Dallas has been this year, look, they won the division. They're going to the playoffs with plus 14 differential. That's it, plus 14. The only other team that would be that close to them would be Tennessee at plus 23 if they, of course, beat the Colts here on Sunday night. But nobody else that's in the playoffs is remotely close to that number here. The Vikings are plus 3, so they would be the actual closest of teams above the cut line right now. I don't think as a team like Dallas, you can afford to take this week off because you've got a lot of rough edges you need to smooth out. I know you're hosting probably Seattle in this game coming up in the wild card weekend. So, it helps to play well against Saquon Barkley because you're getting either Chris Carson or Dalvin Cook or, something like that probably in this matchup. So, I think it helps them to keep their run defense in form and also, keep things going on offense too. So while it looks like they don't have much to play for, I don't think they take that approach.
No, I agree with you. You keep things running, and that's why I think also you got to get Zeke out there. It's all about cohesion. It's the chemistry of the running game. You still have to have your offense out there at full go, and I think the same applies on the other side of the ball. So it's full go with all those D linemen as well, and that's the only thing I'd be worried about in the matchup. Is Lawrence out there, the D end, and Vander Esch and Smith, then I'm all in because I think that's the real difference maker is what the way Dallas is getting it done. It's all on that defense and how fast they're playing. So those guys are out there. I think the Cowboys, not only will they cover, they're probably winning it anyways. I don't know, but then again, this is why I don't know as much as the people in the books. But yeah, that's one line I saw. It's like, man, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
All right, so we'll move to my next game that's definitely on my picks list. That's number 19, the Buffalo Bills. They're a 3.5-point favorite. Mark it up to 4.5 or 5. So grabbing a little bit of line value here. I know there'll be a consensus play. They may be the most popular play on the card this week, but obviously I have no reason to worry about that. Now, I just can't think that the Dolphins have any interest in coming up and playing in Buffalo this week. Eliminated from playoff contention last week. Going to be cold, wind chill in the 20s. And also, too, for the Dolphins here, This Adam Gase thing really hasn't worked out all that well for them, but this is also going to be probably the end of the Ryan Tannehill era, and it is coming to an end with a whimper. He's been hurt, I get it, but I think that was a mistake pick from the start for the Dolphins, and I think this just kind of slams the door on this forgettable era for the Dolphins. I mean, they haven't been to the playoffs in forever. Eliminated in Week 16 hurts. I don't see them showing up here this week. And the Bills, yeah, they lack talent, specifically on the offensive side, but they play damn hard week in and week out. And obviously that defense, chip on its shoulder all year long. I think the Bills are just an easy play this week.
I like the Bills a lot here, too. This would be Josh Allen's second game against the defense. And I think in the last game, too, this is a much different defense. Kiko Alonso, where he's at with his injury. Xavier Howard's not going to play. I think that's the best player on their defense. Minka will be out there and the two safeties, but still, that's a big upgrade on that side. I don't know, a lot of people understand how good that Howard kid is for the Dolphins. Were he to go to another team, and the publicity he'd get being on an actual contender, but I like where the Bills are going here. I think Allen's gotten better every week since he's been back. And he's starting to find a lot more chemistry. It's not just the Foster kid who we talked about from Alabama. The Zay Jones is getting in. Isaiah McKenzie's getting in there. They've started to flash some weapons, and that's that team at the end of the year. It happens a lot more so, I think, in the college spectrum when you get those extra practices and the sort of the light bulb turns on for the younger players. Well, this is that young team, and it's not that they're getting extra time or extra practices. It's just happening at the right time. That line's the super young, Deion Dawkins from Temple, starting to develop into somebody. I mean, you saw him trade Cordy Glenn. It's like, yeah, they're just crazy, but maybe, smart like a fox could ability there too. I like where the whole roster's at, and definitely a coaching staff that, I mean, it's all about, who knows what the future holds. So they definitely want to go out strong in their last game against a rival, and a little revenge factor, too, doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the Bills lost that first game down in Miami 21-17, despite outgaining Miami 415 to 175. You and I talked about recording it, a very popular one as well, but I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts. SuperContest rotation order number 21. 3-point favorite in this one. Look, it's Andrew Luck and Frank Reich going up against the Titans for a second time. I think that's a coaching edge for Indianapolis. Marcus Mariota's hurt. We know that. Colts are fast on defense. Colts had 5 red zone trips and 6.6 yards per play in the first meeting between these two teams. Yeah, Eric Ebron's hurt. May miss the game with a concussion. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton's been banged up. I don't see the Colts losing this game, and I don't even know how close this game actually is. I just think Tennessee, while they've been very good and they've overachieved a little bit this season, I know this is a Game 7, win and you're in, that type of thing, but, man, the Colts they look like so much better of a team right now.
Playing really well. I think the biggest difference for them is how they're handling rushers. The running back contain has been huge. The speed to the edge, that's where it's making the largest difference. So if they think they're just going to bang Derrick Henry up the gut a bunch of times for however many yards they want, they'll be sort of mistaken there. And then I'm hearing Mariota plays, which I think is actually better for the Colts case there. Mariota's latest commentary on that injury is that it's a nerve thing. He felt a little bit of the numbness return that was similar to early in the season, and if that's the case, I think he goes back and reverts to that similar play. Even if he doesn't, the weapons on the perimeter don't scare me with the Colts' speed. I definitely want an Indianapolis side here because the best method of attack for Tennessee is it's D. Henry, it's Mariota working that read option, and where Mariota's at with his level of confidence. They also, I think it's Logan Ryan is injured. So like that one more corner down. I know they still got Jackson and probably Butler. Butler has had a really bad season. for the Titans. It's so much so that, like, with the amount of money they're paying him, he could be an off-season sort of cap casualty type of player. I like where their linebackers are at. Jayon Brown stepped up, and that rookie they took out of Alabama, a rookie Alabama linebacker, maybe that'll work out, Rashaan Evans. I think those two will be the future of that defense, but the future is a little far away for them right now. I think the Colts right now just a better team, better mojo. This is who's winning in. You got to bet Andrew Luck here. Definitely not Mariota with the current situation and his injury. I feel terrible for him because it's just yet again another season where it's he may be on the shelf right when his team needs him the most.
Well, and if the Colts do see Blaine Gabbert in this game, if Mariota is hurt and can't continue, or if they decide not to use him, the Colts faced Blaine Gabbert last time out. So they've already game planned for him. They already know what he's all about, have plenty of film, and all that type of thing. So the three games that are definitely on my card here this week, Cowboys plus 6.5, Bills minus 3.5, Colts minus 3. Now we'll go with the leans here, and these again are in SuperContest rotation order. These are not by strength of my opinion, but usually what happens is I talk through some of these with you, Joe, and then I wind up adding them to the card. But number 3 in the SuperContest, the Kansas City Chiefs, 13.5-point favorite here, and we all know this. We all know the stakes for them. They need to win to clinch the West. They'd clinch the top seed. They would clinch a bye. But I think they would like to get a blowout here. I think they would like to turn this into a laugher, give Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce most of the day off, figure something out with the running backs. And also, too, I think the Raiders had their big emotional moment last week at home. Short week travel to Arrowhead. The iconic Marshawn Lynch trying to light a blunt on the Raiders flame that you and I were laughing about before the show. I think that was just I hate to say it like this, but I think that was the fitting end for what we've seen here from the Raiders this season. I don't know if they show up at all here this week. They may just go ahead and get in the surrender cobra position here for this one and just let the Chiefs have their way. So I think the Chiefs minus 13.5, scary number, but I see no reason why they can't cover this.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the letdown factor is what I like the most about that. They were in Oakland, they light the Al Davis flame, and that's where it left. That's where that energy, all of that is still in Oakland, and that's going to be the big difference here for Kansas City. They need it for their lungs. So, yeah, I'd expect them to put up a pretty early lead here, and it kind of feeds into that. I think the last game, too, they shut down Tyreek Hill, so he may have a little potential revenge there. He might go up for an early score or something, but I assume double-digit win here by Kansas City. They want a nice, comfortable one, theoretically rest their starters in the last quarter here, and what kind of effort that we're going to see from that Oakland team, or for the last time they'll be called an Oakland team. I think that's the big factor for me. I know we've talked about we don't want to go out and generally fade any team, but if there's a team to fade this week after last, it's letdown city for the Raiders.
Well, and this game is in direct contrast, I think, to the next lean that I like, the New York Jets, or plus 13.5 against New England. When you play a really good team in Week 17, maybe it's one of those things where, we want to see how we stack up. We want a measuring stick game to go into the offseason with. I think the Jets are in that kind of mold. Now, obviously, Todd Bowles will not be there next year. They'll have some new coordinators next year as well. But it's Sam Darnold's team, and we know that, and there are some guys at the wide receiver position to build on. There are some guys sporadically up and down the depth chart they can use. The difference is, for Oakland, who knows what John Gruden does with this team in the offseason? Do they move on from Derek Carr? Do they keep moving on from some of their linemen and some of these other guys? I don't think Oakland has that same feel to facing a really good team, whereas I think the Jets do. I think the Jets, take this game a little bit more personally than Oakland will. Obviously, the Jets are not a great team, and the Patriots, we're pretty close to covering last week with the big number against the Bills, but the Patriots here, 0-3 against the spread last 3 games, so it's not like they're really turning things around. They're 10-5 to the under this year, which means it's been really hard for them to get margin because they're just not the same offensive team that they have been in the past. Tom Brady does not look very good. 63% completion rate last 8 games, 9-4 touchdown interception ratio. All 4 of those interceptions in December already. I think the Patriots want to win this game, get out, and then figure it out for the playoffs. And I think the Jets play a full 60 minutes here. So getting 13.5, I do like them.
I'd agree with the measuring stick theory, especially. They want to go out against a division opponent, against a team they've game prepped for twice now, and they want that second game to be different, especially going in the offseason. That is, and not just for the coaching staff. I think also for management upstairs, this is important because, McGagnon, yes, he made the trade to acquire the 3rd pick, and he did draft Darnold. He's got that going for him, but if anyone thinks he's safe, they're fooling themselves. And I think McGagnon knows a really big game by Sam Darnold out of here and playing the Pats, that might go a long way to saving that nice cushy office he's got. It'd be a shame because really he did a lot to orchestrate that trade. He put his neck out there risking all those second-round picks like he did. Those second-round, the way the salary boils down and everything, not risking a future first salary, it's a lot more lucrative and cost-effective for those teams to just have more second-rounders and late-rounders, and that's, giving up those two. A lot of people said, was it worth it for the move? Well, this is another way of proving that worth. I think Darnold looks real good. Now, granted, that was against the Packers defense, but there's so much chemistry that's evident out there, even with some young fellas. Robbie Anderson's no spring chicken, but the Herndon kid from Miami, thankfully he didn't there was a little off-field scare when he was drafted, but, I mean, he's going about his business real well, and he and Darnold have something going there. And Eli McGuire from the Raging Cajuns finally getting his chance. It's like, Crowell, I know he played really well, but that's definitely a case of that running back that didn't play the whole first half of the season. McGuire gets in there the second half with his fresh legs, and he just looks he looks terrific right now. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of speed for the Jets on offense. They know what they're doing, and I'd probably break the record again for saying it, Adam. I don't care, but they know Jeremy Bates in this offense. They've had a good time with him this year. Josh McCown, Sam Darnold. They know this is the last game they're running with Jeremy's script, the scheme. They're going to go out and execute. I think the Jets do play pretty hard here, man.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, I think this one's probably the least likely to make my card of my leans just because I'm worried about, some of the injury problems that the Jets have. And also, too, I mean, the Patriots last week, Tom Brady was terrible, but they ran the football pretty well. So that concerns me a little bit, too. If they do get margin, they can put this game away. But the Jets, again, I'll do some more digging on this one. My SuperContest picks don't have to be in until Saturday morning, so I'll do some more digging there on that one. I got to put number 16 in the SuperContest rotation order, the Cleveland Browns, on my short list here. I think they'll be a relatively popular pick as well, but this is the Browns team that has the chance at its first winning season since 2002. I know the Ravens are going for the playoffs, but when you talk about how awful the Browns have been for as long as they've been bad, having a winning record here is a massive, massive achievement for this team. And I think that, look, you look at last week's game, Baker Mayfield gets hit a little bit late by Carlos Dunlap, and there's Jarvis Landry, ready to mix up with Dunlap. You have to like that. You have to like where this team is right now. They're having fun. They're throwing 60-yard double reverses. They're, using Freddie Kitchens' scheme to perfection. Baker Mayfield's only been hit a handful of times here since Kitchens took over. They've got house money, and they're gambling with it, and I really like that. And the Ravens, I mean, look, the Ravens have to pucker up a little bit all of a sudden here. They need to win this game. The Browns are playing free and easy, and when you get a team in a must-win situation, it's hard to back them. So I think the Browns do wind up on my card, even if it's a little bit of a nod, just here at the end of the season to what they've accomplished. Because as I tweeted last Sunday, Sundays are fun again in the Cleveland area, and you can't beat it when the Browns are competent. It's nice to see.
That quarterback with that much confidence too. He looks not only yes, he's a pro. He's supposed to be drafted high. He looks right for that city. Like, he's just got an attitude, a chip on his shoulder, and the confidence he's exuding is that's a team that needs a leader like that. And, boy, they're just it's like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys are just dancing right along. And this is, I agree with the aspect, not only first win in season, you got a chance to sweep the Ravens. Beat them game one. This would be game two. You oust them from the playoffs. The only aspect is weird for me, and maybe I'm just thinking too much on it, but the Steelers getting into the playoffs theoretically as a result of you beating the Ravens. Do you hate Pittsburgh that much is my biggest question. And I don't think anyone would be wanting to take a dive just out of spite for the Steelers. So I don't know, like that's the one aspect of the game. It's like, wow, could they even be thinking that way? I doubt it. It's just my little tinfoil paper hat kind of theory there. But, man, it's a big game. It's hard not to like the Browns just on the aspect of, like you said, having the win. I don't know how many years it's been, but turning this team into a winner year one as number one overall draft pick, I think there's a whole lot of motivation there for Baker. Really well in their last game. I think that held them to 9 points. It was one of those super low-scoring all-defense that I'd expect to see the same kind of game. Granted, it's going to be a completely different look. Now that was the Flacco-led Ravens team for the first look, but they've got enough game film on this Army, Navy, triple option Ravens offense that they're running with Gus the Bus and Lamar. I don't think they're too scared of that Russian attack, and especially with how well they played on defense and the talent they got on that side of the ball. It's there's a whole lot of good juju, man. Not to use a Steeler term there, but they've just got a great attitude in Cleveland right now, and I'm with you, man. I think they play real hard, not for any playoffs, not for anything, but to say we're a winner this year, and no one could take that away from us.
Yep, Browns, again, looking for their first winning season since 2002, would be the first sweep of Baltimore since 2007. And, in fact, since 2007, they've beaten Baltimore exactly 3 times, and they play them twice a year. So you can do the math there on that. With how one-sided this has been, and to be able to get that victory here would certainly mean a lot to them. One more game on my leans list here. The San Francisco 49ers, they're number 32 in the SuperContest rotation order, plus 10 against the Rams, fading the Rams. You didn't really work out last week with the Cardinals, but overall it's been a pretty decent thing to do here of late. I wish Matt Breida was playing in this game, obviously, to run on that Rams defense, but we're getting good efforts week in and week out from San Francisco. And the Rams, obviously, they need the game, but they're not going to mortgage anything to get the game. I don't know how much Todd Gurley we see. I don't know how much Jared Goff we see, to be totally honest with you. Feels like a running clock type of game with a lot of C.J. Anderson, a lot of Jeff Wilson. And I think 10 points on the 49ers is good enough to get me there. So that would be the last lean that I've got to mention here for this segment.
The finish strong 49ers. We're talking about not just last year, this year too. We're going to play hard no matter how much it ruins their draft stock. I'd be losing on purpose, but there they are. Just they're running the ball real well, and that's no surprise. That coach, the zone blocking scheme, they're going to have it every year. And I really think, regardless of Breida being out, that Jeff Wilson from North Texas, I'm not to, break my elbow, pat myself on the back there. That was one of my kids when we were still doing that CGS. College Gridiron Showcase. It was down in Texas, and I was really looking for Texas players. I can't count how many kids backed out of the event. So you got to have a list of local dudes to call up on, and boy, Jeff was on top of my list. Like, North Texas, it's not that far away. Maybe we could get him in at last minute, and I'm just happy, smiling ear to ear to see him not only find himself on a real good running team, but he fits the scheme really well. So I think he shows up, and every week the 49ers linemen have been showing up. I know that. So the Rams are going to have some problems, I think, stopping the San Francisco run, and the recipe to sort of stifle those L.A. Rams is to kill the clock, shorten up the game, keep Dre Fogue and his crew on the sidelines, I think San Francisco could do that. And, yeah, I definitely don't want to jump on a Rams side at this point. I know that game went real well for them against the Cardinals, and C.J. Anderson, that's just a great story for what a rough year it's been for him just to find some success. But I think this game goes a little different, and this is along a similar theme. They don't care what it does to their draft slot. It's still a very young team that I think wants to at least enter into the offseason feeling good, kicking up and beating up on a division rival and say, oh, yeah, enjoy your playoffs. You still lost against us. I think there's a little motivation on that, and it's just a simple fact. They haven't given up on anything from the 49ers games I've watched. They're still playing hard. Nick Mullins is not a bum, and they're going to enter in next season as one of the buzz teams, probably 2019 again, where everyone's going to be talking about how good could the 49ers be. Well, we'll see.
All right, so we wrap up this Super Contest segment. My picks likely going to be Cowboys plus 6.5, Bills minus 3.5, Colts minus 3. The leans list, Chiefs, Jets, Browns, and 49ers. Joe Everett, who's working a follow on Twitter, at Joe W. Everett from Draft Scouts and Insider Football. Appreciate all your help with the Super Contest segment here this season, man. Thank you so much for everything, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Oh, my pleasure. Just glad to be a part of it. Yeah, looking forward to talking hopefully on Monday.